Good evening, this is Brown at IF Brown, and tonight we are going to be talking about Omega Doom on DVD. So this is actually a double feature DVD with the movies Blind Fury being on one side and Omega Doom being on the other. And this is actually my first time having seen Omega Doom, and it was directed by a guy named Albert Payun. I hope I'm saying his name right. But he's a guy who's very well known in the B-movie community, and he's probably got close to 50 movies to his name. And even if you're not, say, a B-movie fan, odds are, if your tastes are more, say, mainstream, you've probably seen a movie or two of his at some point in your life. But he's directed stuff like The Sword and the Sorcerer, Radioactive Dreams, Cyborg, Nemesis, Mean Guns, and he's also directed the 90s version of Captain America. Not that it was a good movie, but I figured it was probably worth pointing out, for Marvel movie aficionados. But he's one of those guys who, in my personal opinion, he has yet to actually make a legitimately good movie. But at the same time, he's even the movies of his that are just straight up bad. That from what I've seen, there are interesting things about them where you feel like this might actually have been, at the very least, a better movie had it been, say, in the hands of someone who is more competent in, say, directing or writing or something like that. But every now and then, he'll turn out a movie that's, if not, straight up good, then at the very least it's decent. And there are a couple of movies of his that I've seen that fall into the decent category, but a good amount of the time, they seem to fall in the, either, bad but interesting to watch, or just okay, territory. But Omega Doom kind of, for me at least, falls in the, sort of ho-hum territory. Like, it's not, to me at least, it wasn't a terrible movie. There were some interesting things about it, but at the same time, it wasn't, a good movie, really. It was just, okay, one and done. But the story of the movie, it takes place way in the post-apocalyptic future, in which there's been a worldwide war between androids and humans, and unfortunately for humanity, the androids won. And if there's any humans left in the world, they're in hiding. And so the androids are just kind of running things, or just sort of drifting through with kind of an aimless purpose, because killing humans was kind of their programming. And without humans to kill, they have no purpose, really. But one android, who goes by the name Omega Doom, hence the title of the movie, played by Rutger Hauer, he has a bit of a quirk, in a sense that, during one of the last battles of the war, he was shot in the head by a human soldier, and somehow or another, this bullet, damaged him to a point where he broke from his programming and started to, question, I guess, the nature of his existence, as well as, say, the morality of, killing humanity, or just killing in general. But, this being a post-apocalyptic future, that doesn't necessarily mean that, he's, becoming Mr. Pacifist or anything. I mean, he's very capable of defending himself if need be, but at the same time, he doesn't go out, say, looking for trouble necessarily. But one of the things that's happened because of this war is that firearms are a rarity, and those who walk amongst the ruins of the world, they have, things like, bladed weaponry and things like that. And, Omega Doom one day finds himself in, the ruins of an old town, chief of which include, say, what's left of an old amusement park, as well as a bar. And he finds out from an android by the name of Head, because he's literally just a head that gets kicked around by other androids. But after having saved Head, from some, physical abuse, Head ends up, telling Omega Doom, about the situation in that town, that there are a couple of, factions there, a couple of rival gangs of androids, and, they're sort of at an uneasy truce because, they both sides believe that there's essentially a, secret stash of, firearms somewhere hidden in the town, and both gangs actually, want this stash because they've been hearing rumors that, the remnants of humanity are, basically rebuilding and, coming to, take back, the Earth from the androids. And so Omega Doom, once he gets kind of a feel for the town, I mean, he sees that, both gangs are, very ruthless, very opportunistic, very uncaring for, life outside of, themselves. And so, he figures that, I mean, as bad as the world is, they could probably benefit from, having a couple of these gangs removed, because they're clearly intending on doing, harm on any survivors that are found, of humanity, that is. And also, he doesn't like the fact that, both gangs abuse the relatively innocent androids that are staying in the town, namely Head, as well as a female android who just goes by the name of Bartender, because, she's a servant drone, and, she serves water to the, few residents of the town. And for some odd reason, androids like to drink water, apparently. But anyway, though, Omega Doom gets the idea to play both gangs against each other, basically, telling, one set one thing and the other set another, to basically get them in the right place at the right time, so he can either kill them off himself or they kill themselves off. And so that's basically the gist of the movie. Excuse me. So there were some things that I thought were interesting about the movie. Like it was shot somewhere in Europe. Kind of a I guess you could say worn down, almost war-torn part of Europe, and it actually made for some, pretty, effective, scenery, because when you see Rutger Hauer or Omega Doom walking through, the streets, where it's, just ruins and, slowly descending snow. I mean, it kind of made me think of the movie Screamers, in a sense. They had this sort of nuclear winter landscape, and, with everyday scenery just sort of ruined by, the war that went on before. And, at the very least, it made for an interesting, world to look at, throughout the movie, even though, the setting seemed to be confined to, that the remnants of that amusement park, as well as the bar. And so I guess, that was kind of a sign of the low budget. So, I mean, on one hand, I mean, it definitely looks like an apocalyptic set, but unfortunately, you don't really get to see the world outside of that set. I mean, you hear talk about it, but you don't get to see it. And, yeah, the actors, they all do okay, for what the material is. but there's also very few of them. I think altogether there's like 3 or 4 gang members that like there's four gang members in one group of androids and three gang members in another group. And so by the way, the two gangs are called the droids and the ROMs. And the ROMs seem to be made up of 3 female androids who all look like um, I think maybe they sort of look like Trinity from the Matrix, in the sense that they have black garb and sunglasses. They don't look exactly like her, but I mean there's a similarity there. Whereas the droids, I mean, they sort of look Blade Runner light as far as the type of clothing that they wear, the jackets and what have you. So the droids seem to be more belligerent, but the ROMs are more calculating. But make no mistake, they both want to kill anyone who isn't a part of their gang, and so yeah, that's where the characters of Head and the bartender fall in. Head is actually played by a guy named Norbert Weiser, who has been in a lot of Albert Pion movies, and I've seen him in a couple other things, but I have to admit that he actually did a pretty good job, considering that for the most part he was just a head being kicked around or rolling around throughout the movie. But he Omega Doom eventually helps him get attached to an android body, and the kicker being though that because it's not his original body, he's flopping around like a maniac the whole time. So he'll be trying to have a casual conversation with someone, but then he'll be herking and jerking, like his legs will be kicking out, or his arms will be rolling around, and he looks like he's having a seizure or something. So I mean, Norbert Weiser though, I mean, he actually does a good job in the part. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he was pretty good at doing some physical comedy, because of his malfunctioning body whenever he's attached to one. And so I did get a kick out of that. Let's see, the bartender, she was played by Anna Katariana, and she was I'm not sure if I've seen her in anything. I might have, but I kind of liked her character, because she's following her programming, much like the android gangs are following their programming, to attack or kill anyone who isn't a part of their gang. She's following her programming to serve the residents of the town, and seeing as how there's no more humans around, the residents seem to be made up of androids, and so she'll be serving them water, and she'll be listening to what's going on, and their latest plans to try and outwit one another, but she wants to leave, but she can't though because of her programming. So and there was a little bit I liked where she has this music box, like one of those snow globe music boxes, and Omega Doom's asking her about it, and she tells him that it belonged to her former owner, who was a little girl, and she's talking about how she can remember her voice, but she can't remember anything she said. Like, she remembers her singing along with the box, but she doesn't remember any of the lyrics, and so I thought that was actually an unexpected moment of pathos, that you probably wouldn't expect to find in a movie like this. And so I did like how, I mean, there were some things that kind of stood out and made the movie a little more interesting than it probably would be otherwise. And Rutger Hauer, yeah, he does okay in the part. And I mean, considering that I just recently saw him in the movie Blind Fury, and then I'm seeing him in this movie, he's playing a very similar part, except he's not blind, but and this time he's an android. But it's very hard, to for me to think of Rutger Hauer doing badly, even if say it's a bad movie. But I mean, he's just that good of an actor. But I mean, he does okay here. I mean, it's nothing to write home about. But he plays well with the other actors, and I kind of get the feeling though that he was in behind the scenes he might have been confused as to say, maybe the nature of the world around the character of Omega Doom, because there'll be times where like he's talking about certain events, or asking about certain things, and you know the way the dialogue is comes across as it's like it's meant to convey that there's a more extensive world outside of what you're seeing on the movie, but unfortunately, because we don't really see anything outside of the main setting of the movie, some of the references are kind of confusing, and maybe it's just me, but there were a couple of times where it felt like Rutger Hauer might have been a little confused as to what he's talking about. But at the same time though, he mostly just he does his thing, he says his lines, and has a decent fight scene or two. But other than that though, I mean, it's nothing to write home about. I mean, he does okay, but he's just kind of I guess there for the paycheck. Like, he's not gonna give a bad performance, but at the same time, if he's not really feeling it, you're gonna see that in the performance. But anyway, not exactly his finest hour, but not his worst hour either. But as far as the other actors who played the androids, there really wasn't any particular actor that stood out, other than say Norbert Weiser and Anna Katariana as head and the bartender, respectively. But I did find the at least the characters of the ROMs to be interesting, in a sense that in comparison to the droids, like, they actually came across more like what you'd expect for an android. Like, I mean, they're calculating, they're focused, and I mean, granted, they have their own agenda, but it's conducted in a more artificial manner that you would expect from, say, something with an artificial intelligence. Whereas the droids, they seem to be more bombastic and more over the top, and basically just they come across as bad guys you'd find in any sort of a post-apocalyptic movie, except in this case, some of them have weird eyes, or like electronic eyes, like blue or gold eyes, and that's about it. That's the other thing, is that some of the special effects, I mean, okay, this is a very low budget movie, so the special effects are not good. I mean, but there is the occasional moment where you see, say, the damage on an android's body, and you see wiring and lightning, shooting out every now and then, like something you'd expect from a damaged electronic. But I mean, other than that, though, the special effects are pretty cheesy. And I'm trying to figure out if the blades that the androids were using were actually energy weapons, or they were just regular blades that the special effects people in the movie were trying to have them look cool. Because whenever an android throws a blade, it sort of starts to glow, like this orange glow, and whenever it hits another android, it seems like there's an explosion. And it was really kind of hard to tell what was going on as far as the fighting goes. And both with Omega Doom fighting other androids, or just other androids fighting each other, I mean, it was very difficult to tell what was going on. The editing could have used some work, to be excuse me, perfectly honest. But uh, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it just I mean, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, but at the same time, though, I mean, there were some ideas about the movie that were intriguing, and I would have liked to have seen more of the world that the movie took place in. But unfortunately, we only got to see a very small part of this world, and you know other than some teasing fragments of information, you know that's all we get. But I will say that I really liked the instrumental score of the movie. It's done by a guy named Anthony Riparati, I think is how you say his name. But I can honestly say that he's a really good composer. He also did the soundtrack for another Peele movie called Mean Guns, which I actually thought was a halfway decent movie, all things considered. And but anyway, though, hearing his work on Omega Doom, it basically brought some life to a sort of ho hum movie. The soundtrack was really good. It was very atmospheric. It definitely brought to mind like a lot of Western movies, like say Clint Eastwood stuff, or like if there's a gunfight about to happen, the guitar goes to town, that kind of thing. But yeah, just very moody. It sort of I honestly think that it made the movie sound good when in fact the movie wasn't good, but the soundtrack was good. And honestly, I think that the guy deserves to have some work in higher budgeted movies. But that's just my opinion. But anyway, though, yeah, it was okay. Nothing to write home about really. And all things considered, I mean, I can't really complain too much about it because, I mean, the main reason I got this DVD, this double feature DVD, was because of the movie Blind Fury being on there. And that was actually a good movie. But then, so Omega Doom, I guess you could say, was just kind of a bonus, if you will. And yeah, so I can't really complain too much about it. Now, if this was strictly made up of Omega Doom, then yeah, I'd be kind of annoyed. But in this case, it's just sort of, hey, flip it over on the other side, that's it. But anyway, though, I'm going to go ahead and give Omega Doom 2 out of 5 stars. It was okay. Not actually bad, but at the same time, definitely not a good movie. So yeah, just, thank you very much for taking the time to check out my review. Hope you all enjoyed it. And y'all got any questions, comments, let me know. Y'all have a good night. Bye.